Good morning, good afternoon, English 9 and English 9 Honors. These are the notes that we are going to take on point of view this year. We talked briefly about point of view when we took our original blue notes on short story elements, but we're going to go into a little more specific detail on point of view and our analysis of it in literature and specifically in our short story unit. So you want to make sure that you have your pink chart that you can take notes on as we go through this PowerPoint. You also are welcome to fast forward or rewind as many times as you need in order to get the notes and identify some information about how to analyze and identify point of view. All right, first and foremost, let's get the definition of point of view. Point of view is the position or the perspective from which a story is told. You want to make sure that when you go to identify point of view, that you're looking at the story's narration, that you're not paying attention to the dialogue, what the characters are actually saying, things that are put in quotation marks. You want to make sure that you're looking at what the narrator or the narration is using, how they're telling the story, not by what the characters say. Our most common that we see with young adult literature is first-person point of view. A definition of first-person point of view is when the story is characterized by one of its characters, meaning like we are going to have one specific person tell us the story from their perspective. There's some clues that we can use to identify first-person point of view. We can look at the pronouns I, me, my, we, our. When we see these pronouns used in narration, that's when the character is telling us the story directly. They're telling us from their point of view. This is also where the narrator uses his or her own voice, and they speak to the reader as if they are a friend. A lot of times we'll see this within our young adult literature. We have a lot of narrators that often talk directly to us. There's some advantages of first-person point of view, of reading a story that is told from first-person point of view. They're often the most interesting or involved in terms of details, and they're often easy for readers to make a connection to the characters or understand what's going on in the novel. There are also some disadvantages to first-person point of view. One of the disadvantages is that it is the most biased point of view, meaning it can possibly lead to an unreliable narrator or an untrustworthy narrator. There's also another disadvantage of sometimes when we have first-person point of view, we really only get one side of the story. This is the point of view that shows us the least amount of information presented to us. Now, it might be detailed, however, it's only really one side of the story. Another point of view I want to talk about is third-person limited point of view. Third-person limited point of view is when the narrator is an unidentified voice whose view is restricted to what one character, particularly the main character, what one character experiences. So this is where we see the story is told from that unidentified narrator. However, we really only see that narrator telling us the story based through what one character experiences. Some clues to identify third-person limited. We'll see the pronouns he, she, it, they, and their. Him, her, any forms of these pronouns we'll see in third person. They're similar to third person omniscient, so we want to make sure that we're careful, and there will be different ways to differentiate between the two. We also see and are revealed the thoughts of only one particular character. We won't see the different thoughts of all the characters. We will stick closely just to one specifically. There are some advantages of third person limited. One of the advantages is that it allows distance from the main character, but it's still engaging, meaning we're still focused with that one particular character. However, we do get a little bit of a distance from them. We're not totally involved with them as we are first person. There's also some disadvantages to third person limited. Sometimes it is less interesting, less involved, or less direct than first person point of view. We'll see that it might not be as interesting because someone else is telling us the story. And sometimes it may or may not be trustworthy. You'll see in the possibility of evil. We had a third person omniscient mostly, but really it was told from Miss Strangeworth's perspective, so we could argue third person limited. But it wasn't exactly trustworthy because in the beginning we didn't get to see her other side because we didn't get to see that other point of view. Our other point of view that we're going to look at today is third person omniscient. Third person omniscient point of view is a little bit different than third person limited. This is when the narrator is an unidentified voice that knows and sees all. They're known as the all-knowing narrator. That's something you're going to have to remember for a test. That third-person omniscient is the all-knowing narrator. And they know what all characters experience and all events from the past. They know everything about everyone and what everyone is thinking and what everyone is doing and what they have done before. Again, they're unidentified, which is similar to third-person limited, but with third-person limited being specific to one character, third-person omniscient is us seeing every single character. There are some clues to third-person third-person omniscient, us identifying it. They will have the same pronouns as third-person limited. However, if we are told the thoughts of at least 2 or more characters, or we see things happen from the point of views of 2 or more characters, that's when we know we'll have third-person omniscient. We might also have this narrator commenting on events that are going on in the story. Some advantages of third-person omniscient. This is the point of view that presents the most amount of information, meaning we get information from all different perspectives, and because of that, it's least biased. We're able to see that it's not twisting the story from any one person's perspective since we get all of them. A disadvantage to third-person omniscient is sometimes it's the hardest to make interesting for the reader. Because we have so many perspectives going on, we never really get focused on one too much. Our last point of view is second-person point of view. The reason why we talked about third person before second person is first and third person are the most common in literature. Second person is when we have a story that is told from the perspective of you. A lot of times we don't see this in literature, except in the case if we have directions in literature, or we have instructions, or think of those choose-your-own-ending novels. Second person is rarely used in literature. It's when our characters would directly speak to the audience members. Sometimes that happens, it's breaking the fourth wall. However, we don't really see second person point of view in literature a whole lot. All right, now that we've got our notes on point of view, I hope you've taken all of them on your pink chart. So you have them to use to study for your test, which will be on Friday. Now what you want to do is complete today's classwork. Your task today is going to be to play around with point of view. I want you to look around the room, not get out of your seat, but just look. And I want you to look around the room and find any object or item in the room, and I want you to write what it's thinking or feeling right now. So you could look at the flag and see what the flag is thinking or feeling right now. Maybe the pencil sharpener. Maybe the highlighters are longing for someone to come use them and highlight something. Kind of have a little bit of a creative perspective with this. Your requirements are, I want you to write at least 10 sentences about what that particular object is observing in the classroom. You can be as creative as you like. You can give it emotions. You can give it thoughts. You can make it crazy if you really wanted. I would like you to write it from first person point of view. So it should have those pronouns I, me, my. Pretend and put your shoes in the place of that item. Now, I don't want you to actually say, I am the stapler. I don't want you to give away what your item is. I actually just want you to write it so that way eventually when we share these in class, we will be able to guess what the item is. So if you're writing about the pencil sharpener, you might be talking about pencils, or you might be talking about students jamming things in you, and you're upset about it, and eventually through the details, we should be able to figure out what it is that you are writing the perspective from in the classroom. For tonight's homework, you want to make sure that you get the assignment. It's point of view practice number 1. You want to go through and read each passage and determine which point of view is being used. So carefully read through, only pay attention to the narration, do not pay attention to the dialogue. Don't let it throw you off. If you even want to cross out the dialogue, go ahead. It's not where you're going to look to identify point of view. Now, you want to clearly label each passage either first, second, third omniscient for 3O, or third limited with 3L. If you just write third, you're not going to get credit for it. You're going to have to be able to differentiate between the two, between omniscient and limited. Go back to your notes, look over them, and I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll continue our discussion of point of view then. Have a good day.